I've been vegan for 17 years now, and I've been running a vegan designer shoe brand for the last 5. I've learned a lot along the way about what veganism really means and what it means to live a vegan lifestyle. Hey, I'm Desiree. Today I just wanted to sit down and have a compassionate conversation to help clarify some confusion. And there are so many myths that exist from food to fashion to entertainment that I thought it would be powerful to sit down, have a real conversation about what veganism really means. Keep in mind, I am not a scientist, but after 17 years, I have learned a few things. These are the things that I talk about with my friends, my family, our customers, our community at Vos & Co. So let's dive into it and bring a lot more compassion to the conversation. Vegan equals sustainable. This is not entirely correct. Veganism is about the animals. It is not necessarily about the environmental impact. Look at vegan leather, for example. Most vegan leathers from the past have been made with plastic, a petroleum-based fossil fuel-driven material such as PU or PVC. Nowadays, we actually do have a lot more sustainable options when it comes to vegan leather. We are seeing next generation plant-based materials being made from everything from cactus leather to corn leather, bananas to apples. And these materials are definitely a lot more environmentally friendly. So when you choose a next generation plant-based material, scientists have proven that you are able to support a 90% reduction in the demand on water and a 90% reduction in carbon emissions. I will say when you're buying a new product, if you look at traditional animal leather versus any type of vegan leather, the vegan option will always be more sustainable than buying a product from the animal agriculture industry, which, as we know, is responsible for deforestation, greenhouse gases, and is one of the top contributors to climate change. So when we choose the vegan option, it is more sustainable than the animal agriculture option, but it doesn't inherently mean that it's actually sustainable. In terms of sustainability, the only time that I will advocate for a leather product is if it is secondhand. So of course, anything that is already made that we can reuse is definitely going to be the more sustainable option. Something secondhand, upcycled, reused is always more sustainable than buying something new. Veganism is expensive. This really depends on your lifestyle. It depends on your taste. For example, when it comes to food, lentils, rice, beans, legumes, oats, these are some of the cheapest crops on the planet. And in fact, it's what 80 to 90% of the world's population are living on. It used to be considered a sign of wealth to eat meat because it was such a privilege. If you are trying to replace traditional meat and dairy items, you might see an increase in your grocery bill just because you're trying to go one for one with those items. But what I suggest is maybe try to find vegetarian options to replace those. So if you are having something that is meat for dinner, can you replace that with a portobello mushroom, maybe some lentils, and start to look at where you can actually reduce your meat consumption and increase your vegetable consumption. If you are opting for the meat replacement, then try to reduce it to maybe once or twice a week versus every single day. And for milk and dairy alternatives, look for cheaper options. So things like rice milk is usually very affordable. Things like oat milk, almond milk, very easy to make at home. I think learning about what the food options are is very important. We don't always want to just choose the processed vegan meat alternative. That should be used just more as a treat. But on a regular basis, if you are going to be shopping and you're mindful about the amount of money you're spending on groceries, I would definitely lean into learning how to cook with grains and vegetables and legumes, because you will actually see a decrease in your food bill when you start to use more plant-based items. It is really our responsibility to learn about food, because the more we demand these plant-based options, the more the industry will catch up, the more we start to see economies of scale, and the more these items actually become more and more affordable and more accessible. With regards to fashion, many times the vegan option will actually be less expensive using a synthetic or a plastic-based solution, which obviously for the environment is not the best choice. This is where you really want to educate yourself. If you want luxury goods, you will find vegan brands like ours and like our friends at Via Gallo, who are disrupting the vegan fashion space with luxury goods made from next generation plant-based materials. These products rival the look and quality and durability and softness of leather and are more affordable than traditional luxury leather items. At the end of the day, it still comes down to our choices. So it is our responsibility. If we want to see a better world, we have to invest in the world that we want, which leads to better pricing and items and goods becoming more affordable and more accessible. The more we invest, the more innovation will come from the space, and the more we will continue to see better and better products. Veganism is all or nothing. Okay, well, yes, technically, of course, veganism means 100% avoidance of any animal exploitation. However, We are humans living in a human world, and as we know, in a non-vegan society. If you are new on your vegan journey, it's important to be really realistic and have a lot of grace for yourself. It's not easy to be vegan in a non-vegan world, so please extend some grace for yourself. Realistically, perfection doesn't exist. Nobody is perfect. I'm not perfect. We can't be perfect all of the time. I think with veganism, it just comes down to being really mindful and conscious about the choices that you're making. The more you can make vegan choices consistently in your life, the more you're leaning into veganism, then the more we are supporting the movement. Start to become aware where animal materials, animal exploitation, animal products exist in our life, and one by one start to eliminate those options and replace them with compassionate, kind, vegan alternative options. It is not realistic to expect to be able to go from living a regular non-vegan life and to go vegan overnight. It does take a lot of education. It takes a lot of habit changing to expect us to be able to make those choices 100% of the time. That is a really big expectation. And if you are new on the vegan journey, then it's really important to give yourself a lot of room for practice and improvement. It's just about learning, finding resources that will support you in your life. We are living in a non-vegan society, so it's just really important that we take care of ourselves, our health, our mental health. The all or nothing mentality can be very harmful because it leads to people giving up before they've even given anything a chance, which is the exact opposite of what we want. We want to welcome people into the community. We want to welcome you wherever you are on your vegan journey. We see people give up when they just can't commit to doing 100% of it 100% of the time. The best path is doing your best and continuously increasing your awareness about the choices you make and the products and alternatives that are available. Vegan means healthy. Well, again, not entirely true. So many brands are now famously just slapping on a vegan label to make their food seem healthier or better for you. Don't be fooled. Vegan food is also chips, soda, Oreos, and we all know trying to survive off a diet filled with Oreos and soda is not going to be a healthy alternative for you. And this is where I do see a lot of vegans fail, because they're not supplementing their diet with healthy vegan options. At the end of the day, the healthiest foods available to us are naturally vegan. Fruits, vegetables, grains are extremely healthy. We probably need more of them, much more of them every day. If you need a quick snack, grab a banana or an apple, chop up some watermelon. Overnight oats is a really, really healthy option for a breakfast, especially combined with some nut butter or some seeds. Chopped mango for delicious sugary sweetness. There is a lot of scientific evidence out there that a primary plant-based vegan diet is much better for our health. Even influencer Brian Johnson, who's all about don't die, is following a vegan diet. The healthiest people on the planet are following either a blue zone or Mediterranean diet, which is primarily plant-based. Maybe a little bit of fish, but mostly really healthy oils, lots of green leafy vegetables, fruits, grains, rice, legumes. Fill your plate up with these things and guarantee you will get enough fiber to keep you full. You'll get enough protein for those gains you need from the gym, and you will also simultaneously reduce your risk of cancer, heart disease, or illness caused by animal products. And the World Health Organization has actually classified red meat and processed meat as a carcinogen. It actually scientifically can lead to colon cancer and other forms of cancer if eaten regularly. Global cancer prevention bodies advise on reducing or eliminating your red meat and your processed meat consumption. It is our responsibility to know what we are putting into our bodies. If you can't pronounce something in the label, then it's probably not something that you want to consume. If you can't pronounce it, don't consume it. The truth is that naturally vegan food is the healthiest option and is going to be better for you. Soy is bad for you. Soy causes cancer or hormonal imbalance. Soy contains estrogen, which is bad for you. This myth just won't die. I have to give it to the dairy industry. They have done a phenomenal job of propelling this propaganda. If you're afraid of soy, please don't be. Soy is one of the Earth's most natural, abundant resources that actually has so many health benefits and is one of the leading sources of protein. And it's so tasty and creamy. It is the best milk option in my opinion. And of course, it's how we get edamame and it's how we get tofu. Clinical data has shown that soy is safe and it actually can help contribute to women's health. Soy does not contain estrogen, it contains phytoestrogens. which actually helps to lower estrogen and has been proven to actually help reduce the occurrence of breast cancer. Vegans don't get enough protein. This is a big one that we hear a lot, but in fact, all amino acids actually exist in plants. Nobody is concerned about how much protein elephants or rhinoceroses are getting, and these are some of the biggest herbivores on the planet. It's actually really easy to get enough protein on a fully vegan diet. I've been following a vegan diet for 17 years, and I think I'm doing pretty good. I feel strong, I feel healthy. My diet consists of beans, tofu, lentils, soy, quinoa, all chocked full of protein. If you look at the top 10 list of foods that contain the most amount of protein, 50% of them or more will be vegan products. Actually, at the top of the list for the #1 source of protein is pumpkin seeds, which I sprinkle every day on my oatmeal or grab just by the handful. And if you're worried about your gym gains, think again. Go back and watch the movie called The Game Changers. There are so many incredible vegan athletes that are dominating sport and breaking records all on a plant-based vegan diet. Vegans are always deficient in B12 or iron. Of course, iron deficiency is possible and it is very common. Iron deficiency is not just a vegan problem, it is a general health challenge. The biggest problem with iron is that it's actually not being absorbed properly. This is why we have to be very careful with the foods that we're eating and make sure that we are including supplements or fortified foods whenever possible. And in order to increase our iron levels, it's really important, if we are taking an iron supplement, to pair that with a vitamin C. Have it with a glass of orange juice, combine it with some natural vitamin C, pineapple, oranges, because vitamin C is proven to help increase the absorption of iron. When it comes to B12, yes, we do know that this is the item that we cannot get naturally from a fully vegan diet. So it is very normal and standard to take a B12 supplement. So it's very important to make sure that you are getting enough B12, whether or not you're following a vegan or a non-vegan diet. In fact, for non-vegans, even if they are eating meat, most of the B12 that is coming from the meat consumption is actually given to the animals in form of a supplement as well. Of course, deficiency is possible if we are careless. This is why it's really important to keep track, not just of protein, to maintain a regular healthy lifestyle. Real leather is a byproduct of the animal agriculture industry, therefore it's sustainable. Wrong. This is one of the biggest misconceptions in fashion. The leather industry is a direct contributor to one of the leading, most destructive industries on the planet, which is animal agriculture. The demand for leather actually increases the demand for animal agriculture, which is why it is considered a co-product. The leather industry and the meat industry, each one drives profitability of the other. And the truth is, there is absolutely nothing sustainable about a product derived from a mass industry such as animal agriculture. And in fact, to make leather, we are not just utilizing the dead skin of an animal. In order to make leather, it has to go through an entirely chemically based process called tanning. The tanning process involves the treatment of very harsh chemicals such as formaldehyde and chromium in order to make leather long-lasting and durable. 90% of the deforestation of the Amazon in Brazil is attributed to animal agriculture. A big part of that is driven by the leather industry. There's just absolutely nothing sustainable about the animal agriculture industry. We are cutting down trees to make land in order to grow food for animals to then consume so that we can then kill and destroy those animals for human consumption, whether it be for leather or for meat. When in fact, we could actually use that same amount of land and grow food for us as society. I think it's time we start to define a new standard for luxury. I don't see how anything that comes from the devastation of the animal agriculture industry, the treatment of animals, and destruction of our planet could ever be considered luxury. In my opinion, a new standard of luxury should be ethical. How is something made? Who is behind how that thing is made? Is the product sourced naturally and in a kind, compassionate way? Does it include clean and safe materials that are non-toxic and healthier for us to wear? This is a new standard for luxury, not animal exploitation, not planetary degradation, not the sacrifice of human health for all of the workers that are working in tanneries that are exposed to harsh chemicals on a daily basis, the chemicals that then run off into the wastewater that goes into the local communities as drinking water. None of it is sustainable. Real leather just lasts longer. Vegan shoes and accessories will fall apart faster. The reason that leather is long lasting or is considered to have a high level of quality is actually the process that makes leather leather. It's not the dead animal skin itself, it's the tanning process, which involves really harsh chemicals. The chemicals used in the leather tanning process include a chemical called chromium, which has now been considered as a type 1 carcinogen. Although it may be longer lasting, you do have to consider the amount of chemicals that are involved in the treatment of the leather that you're wearing. So when we look at it that way, yes, potentially could leather be a much longer lasting solution? It can be considered that, especially in comparison to the cheap vegan leathers of the day. However, the innovation that has been happening in the vegan leather space, there's now a new term called next generation plant-based materials, and these materials rival the quality and durability of traditional leather. So not only do they provide a 90% reduction in the demand for water, a 90% reduction in carbon emissions, they're proven to be as durable as traditional leather. Nowadays, the innovation in vegan leather has come so far. We now have next generation plant-based materials that are completely plastic-free. High-end brands are now looking at next generation vegan plant-based options, setting a new standard for what modern luxury looks like. In fact, big brands like Nike and Adidas, Stella McCartney, they are all starting to innovate and create with next generation plant-based materials. If we really want to look at sustainable options in fashion, anything that is coming from the animal agriculture industry cannot be a part of the equation. We must set a new standard for modern luxury because we know that we cannot rely on animal agriculture for a sustainable future. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the conversation and for being curious. This alone makes a big difference. Every time we ask questions and try to understand more and more how our choices impact animals and the planet, we're able to help propel the movement forward. I hope this conversation has really helped you understand and clarify some of the myths. And as always, I am so happy and grateful to hear from you. So please feel free to reach out on any of our VOS platforms, and I would just love to continue the conversation.